I was hatched into a navy that measured glory by the cargo hold. Victory was inventory. You came back with crates or prisoners, fuel drums rolling home in parades, and the dock clerks stamped your courage into numbers. Our hymnals were manifests, our lullabies, balance sheets. It made ethics easy. You either added to the pile or you explained yourself to a man whose medals sounded like coins. When he walked, then we met humanity, and the ledger went quiet. 5 expeditions sailed toward the Blue Star and did not return. Not wreckage, not ransom notes, not the dignified exchange of sealed urns empires used to keep war orderly. Just absences clean, surgical, as if teeth had been knocked out of a jaw, and the smile pretended not to notice. Admiralty summoned me by number, not name. The powerful forget you have won when they are worried. The chamber was the color of old bone. Senior officers arranged themselves like knives in velvet. "Commodore Talon," said the high speaker, lids lowered to make his voice sound deeper. "You will learn why no one returns after fighting the humans. Do not engage. Do not be charmed. Report and run." "Define charmed," I said, "because I have a defect that makes me ask for definitions when men say magic words." He flicked a disdainful hand. "Whatever makes warriors forget the way home." They gave me a respectable task group, 3 cutters, a carrier to tenders with spares that never fit as well as the list said they would. Adequate if the enemy was doctrine. Not enough if the enemy was appetite. My crew was competent in the way good tools are competent, quiet, stubborn, curved to the hand. Recon Captain Hesse, who could carve secrets out of static. Signals Chief Vren, born with more ears than heads. Gunnery Officer Jack, a beautiful knife who had never been asked what else he could be. First Officer Rel, my friend from the academy who could quote regulations and make them sound like advice. Objective. Rel asked when we were alone. "Find the hole," I said. "Put a number to it." Come home, he echoed, as if practicing. We translated at Neptune, cautious as thieves. The human system stretched in layered geometry beanstalks, like pinned sunbeams over Earth. Belts of habitations where our scouts had promised empty rock. Tiny clean sparks of satellites, like city lights strung across black rivers. Warband is empty. Vren reported after the first sweep. Traffic, those stars. He pushed a feed to the main. My bridge filled with voices. Ferries requesting approach windows. Tug pilots gossiping about a stubborn barge. A weather service apologizing in advance for beautiful lightning. A woman telling a city to drink water because a heat patch was passing. It was the mundane roar of a civilization that had chosen to be busy instead of loud. Contacts. Hesse said, professional calm with a thread under it. Icons bloomed on our plot. 6 small craft and a tight EV. Approach velocity conservative enough to make me itch. No weapon heat. Running lights. Blinking. On our scopes, the lights pulsed long, short, pause, long. It was not a lock. It was a hello. They hailed on the most vulgar of bands, open civilian, inbound formation. "This is Terran Port Authority," said a warm contralto that belonged more in a kitchen than a war room. "Welcome to the inner roads. Please reduce to approach speeds and state if you're here for trade, parley, or a very silly mistake." On my bridge several throats clicked at once. Jack made an outraged noise that I pretended not to hear. "Is this a joke?" He demanded. "Not to them," I said. Watching the shepherd craft take up positions exactly where a good teacher stands in a crowded room. 1 in front to set the pace. 2 on our flanks to discourage rudeness. 1 behind to catch the eager and the foolish. They treated us like ships, not enemies. It made my teeth itch. I opened a channel, smoothed my crest, and let the academy speak through me. "Terran Port Authority, we come as the Dominion Task Group Theta 7. We accept your surrender." A beat. Then the slightest smile in voice. "Surrender accepted. Yours or ours?" A junior navigator choked on his own breath. On the external band someone snorted, then pretended they hadn't. There was no malice in it, just shared oxygen. "We request you turn and go." The controller continued, unfussed. "If you prefer to stay, we will escort you to an orbit where nothing breaks while you posture. Here's where our doctrine says you aim, fire, and name the chapter." The script scratched at my tongue. Then a fragment of logistics scrolled across my peripheral slate, fuel margins a hair tighter. Then the briefing promised, tender spares mismatched by a standard finger's width. The uncomfortable truth that heroics are usually math set to music. Hold, I told the bridge. We'll watch. Jack stared, incredulous. Rel didn't. He had known me long enough to recognize the smell of curiosity overriding training. We followed their shepherds into a parking orbit so clean it felt manicured. No gunboats shadowed us, only the little V of escorts, blinking long short whenever we drifted. War channel still open, sir, Vren said. No one's singing on it. Listen anyway, I said. And tune me into whatever passes for their rules. He did, fingers flicking. A policy document unfolded in my side band, written in a style that hated ornament. Their doctrine had a name so plain it looped back to word poetry, the courtesy doctrine. The first clause wasn't about volley timing or formations. It was about names. State your name and what you're trying to do. We will help you do it safely or we will stop you. These are not enemies. These are options. I tasted the sentence like a foreign spice, simple, disarming. Easy to lie with until you heard how many people had chosen not to, Sir, Hesse said. Spool launched. The spool was a polite iosphere with sensors and a historian's patience. We sent it toward a cluster labeled Arcadia, a wheel city fat with gardens and industry. The spool drifted past a maintenance gantry and peeked like a thief. We expected guns. We found kitchens. Not militarized cafeterias, kitchens with steam and shouting and joy. A line of tired people fed without question if they wore a tool belt or carried a baby. A tool library where you signed out a drill like a book and the clerk asked what you were building. Because curiosity is a kind of border control. A clinic for doctors and a queue that moved in the rhythm of competence. On a wall someone had painted alignment. People first. Someone else had drawn a cat. Propaganda. Jack said hopefully maintenance. I corrected, throat tight. Propaganda is for making you feel. Maintenance is for making you stay. We sampled their entertainments to see what stories they told themselves. Their dramas were not about kings. They were about line cooks and freight foremen and kids making radios out of junk. Their heroes didn't kill dragons. They filed forms, kept promises, and embarrassed bullies in committee. It should have been boring. It was and single quotes T. The ledger in my head victory equals Kratos tried to add this and came up with silence. Why has no one returned? Rel asked softly, half to himself. It was not the question of a soldier. It was the question of a man who has seen a door and wonders whether it opens in or out. Ask them. I said. We sent a formal request, names, casualties, repatriation protocol. Port Authority answered before my tea cooled. To the Dominion Task Group, no dead on record this month. 17 from last quarter are alive. We don't warehouse people. If they wanted to leave, they leave. Most didn't. Attached. Contacts for the ones you call yours. Contacts, addresses. Holos of faces not bent by grief. Vren exhaled like a struck chord. They joined them. They found a world that doesn't need you to be special to count, I said. And realized my tongue had chosen world instead of enemy. Jack turned away from his console, jaw set. Sir, permission to remind them what we are. I looked at the blue planet. The beanstalks, the little escorts blinking hello. The policy written like a hand extended across a table where no one reached for knife first. The Admiralty's orders sat in my pocket, heavy as tradition. Denied, I said. We're going to learn why the ledger went quiet. No one cheered. Good crews don't. They adjusted their grips on their own fear and curiosity and set about the work. Outside, the shepherds blinked long short again. It looked like a joke until you understood the code. A light saying we see you. Stay with us. There's a lane for this. It was my first mistake, or my first mercy. The difference would keep me up for weeks. You can learn more in a day of not fighting than in a year of war. Their shepherds slid us into an orbit so clean it felt combed. Not a gunboat in sight, just 6 workboats with hazard stripes and good paint. Blinking long short like patient metronomes. The broadcast never rose above conversational. Dominion Task Group Theta 7. The contralto said, You're parked over traffic lane Aster. Please refrain from pointing anything at the beanstalk or the singing choral. If you require a tour, press 1. For sandwiches, press 2. Jack, my gunnery officer, made a strangled noise. They're mocking us. If they are, I said. They're very good at it. Signals Chief Vren patched us into what passed for their doctrine. It wasn't locked. It wasn't even watermarked. A wiki bloomed on the sideband, revised within the hour by a person whose comment history included fixing kettle, and petition for more benches. The courtesy doctrine, header plain. State your name and intent. We will help you do it safely, or we will stop you. Both are love. Keep trajectories predictable. Surprise is for birthdays. Do not endanger humans, livestock, or bees. If you don't know what bees are, ask a child. If you must posture, take a number. We will find you a safe orbit and an audience of exactly 0. Is this military policy? First Officer Rel murmured, somewhere between horror and laughter. It's something, I said. He scrolled. There were appendices, hot work permits for hostilities, MSDS for lasers, how to say we're wrong without dying, an entire section on apology formats, rated by sincerity, and repair value. Recon Captain Hess's spool drifted toward Arcadia, the Wheel City. It ghosted a maintenance gantry and peered like a thief. We expected cannons. We found kitchens, not ration lines, kitchens with steam and shouting and a man yelling, "Move your elbows, sue me." Lunch rush isn't a theory. Tool libraries where drills were borrowed like books and returned with pride. A clinic where a triage nurse said you're next the way a mother says you're home. On a wall, alignment, people first, in the corner of the sign. A doodled cat, propaganda, Jack said. But it landed as prayer, and we all heard it. Maintenance, I said. And it tasted like surrender. We sampled their entertainments. Their dramas weren't about kings. They were about line cooks and tug pilots, kids building radios out of junk, committees where bullies were embarrassed into competence. It should have been dull. It watched like a knife. Why has no one returned? Rel asked, softly. Ask, I said. Vren sent a formal packet, casualties list, repatriation terms. The ritual phrases that let empires pretend war is a mannered quarrel. We expected silence. Port Authority replied before my tea cooled. 2. Dominion Task Group Theta 7 no deceased this month. 17 from last quarter alive. We don't warehouse people. If they want to leave, they leave. Attached, contacts for the ones you call yours. The attachment wasn't doctrine. It was addresses, timetables, holos of faces not bent by grief, a pilot under a plant lamp, a marine grinning mid-solder, a logistics clerk asleep under a jack labeled lost and found return please. They joined them. Vren whispered. Betrayal fought with awe in his throat. They found a world that doesn't need you to be special to count, I said, and didn't know if I was naming the enemy or the future. The shepherds blinked again. Long, short, short. I answered without meaning to by matching our running lights. Hesse glanced at me. I shrugged. When in Rome, I said, and the translator supplied when among gardeners. The bridge chuckled, thin and honest. Sir, Hesse said, there's a habitat on our side the holdfast. Public page says belligerents, who don't yet know how not to thrash. Jack bristled. Prison, they don't use that word, Hesse said. They use onboarding. Of course they do, Rel muttered. I requested approach. Port Authority cleared us with all the ceremony of a bus schedule. Dock 12, please. Be safe corridor. Try the dumplings. The holdfast wore yellow hazard paint like a smile. Docks were busy with workboats, and the kind of tug you buy when you have plans, not money. A man in a yellow vest met us with the posture of someone who likes his job. He was unarmed. He had a tablet, a thermos, and a badge with a B, Silva. He said, Welcome. Allergies? Jack drew breath to be offended. The smell of coffee beat him to it. Nightshade, he said, and blinked as if surprised his mouth had helped. Silva nodded. We'll mark you. Follow the bees if you're lost. They know the short paths. They gave us rooms with doors that shut and towels that absorbed water. No guards visible. Signs instead. Tool library gives. Clinic that doesn't shout gives, if you are frightened. Find a person with a B. We walked past a wall of photographs, people holding wrenches, babies, clipboards, people on ladders and under sinks, people with bad hair and good grins. Above them, we build what we keep, assignments, Silva said, handing me a tablet. Not forced. Work slots. Swap if they don't fit. He'd given Jack a welder and a broken handrail. Jack held the tablet like a live fish. Is this a test? Everything is, Silva said, but mostly it's a handrail. Signals Chief Vren got a chair at the radio net, where a woman with laugh lines slid him a headset and said, "Shift schedule is honest. Coffee's on the left. Cry if you need to." Vren didn't cry. He adjusted 3 dials with reverence and said, "I can do this." They gave me a ledger. Not ours, theirs. A project called The Honest Book. It wasn't a weapon. It was worse. It was an audit. Lynn, the human assigned to hold my attention, had ink on her fingers and the smile of a person who liked strangers until proven otherwise. "We pick one thing your Admiralty never writes down because it embarrasses expensive hats," she said, "and we write it in public. That's treason. That's maintenance." She tapped a column. "See here, customary gratuity your captains keep. That's a bribe you all remember as a lullaby. Write it down. We'll mail it home." "We don't mail," I said. "We threaten." "Boring," Lynn said cheerfully. "Also less effective than you think." In the Holfast cafeteria, we met our ghosts. Names from the missing expeditions sat at tables with plates and bad jokes and the posture of people who hadn't been required to be decorative in a while. A Marine tied 3 knots for a child and stopped at 4 because 4 was the boastful one. A pilot poured tea for a tug captain and called him Auntie. "Traitors," Jack breathed. "Graduates," said the Marine, unbothered. She tapped her bee. "I was a beautiful knife. Now I'm a tool. It matters what you build. Do you never leave?" I asked. "Some do," she said. "We give them sandwiches and maps." Lynn walked me through a door labeled shop class where 20 humans and 3 aliens learned how to say I was wrong without swallowing a tooth. They practiced. They laughed when they failed. They tried again. "We weaponize competence," Lynn said, "and apology. Both scale better than rage." I sent a report, because duty is a habit like breathing. The first draft hit us. The second draft hedged. The third draft said we are not in danger. We are in jeopardy and attached an appendix, the Dominion's missing compensation, itemized. Rel signed it with his whole name. So did I. Vren added a postscript. "Tell my brother I'm sleeping." It helps. We used a public channel. Port Authority stamped it received like a package and forwarded it to everyone. You would forward a miracle to unions, clinics, kitchens, children. The Admiralty did not answer. A different feed did. A message from a border settlement that had been paying 3 rents for 1 roof. "Saw your numbers. We thought we were crazy. Thank you." Jack welded the handrail and swore when his bead went crooked. Then swore again when an old woman with a bee showed him a trick to make the puddle shine. "Again," she said, and he did, and it held. And he did not grin because he was noble but because he was relieved. That night, under a ceiling painted the color of restful, I lay awake and listened to the Holfast breathe. Not vigilance, ventilation, the hum of a city that had decided to be kind on purpose. Rel's voice drifted from the next bunk. "Do we go back?" "Yes," I said. "Soon." "No." He was quiet a long time. "We don't shoot." Then, "No," I said, and surprised myself by wanting to. Not at them at the ledger that had made me bow to numbers so long I'd forgotten to count people. "We learn why the dead space in our books looks like a door in the morning." The shepherds blinked long short outside the port. Vren mirrored them with our running lights. No one told him to stop. On the policy wiki, a new comment appeared under how to host enemies. Remember they are here because something failed where they came from. Offer tea. Offer work. Offer the names of things. Teach them where the towels are. Jack laughed out loud at that, because towels had been terrible in our Navy since before he was born. He went and changed one without being asked. They had a place for us, of course. They called it the Holfast and made no secret of it. A ring habitat reserved for belligerents who don't yet know how not to thrash. It wasn't a prison in the sense my Navy taught me. No bars. No electric songs to keep you still. The locks were knowledge. The walls were work. Our launch kissed its dock. A human in a yellow vest met us with the posture of a person who has slept and likes his job. He introduced himself as Silva. He was not armed. He held a tablet and a thermos and asked if anyone had allergies. "This is ridiculous," muttered my gunnery officer. "This is interesting." I corrected. They gave us rooms with doors that shut all the way and towels that actually absorbed water. They let us move in public corridors alone. They posted no guards in sight. They posted signs instead. Tool library, this way. Clinic that doesn't shout, that way. If you are frightened, find a person with a B on their badge. B's. The emblem was everywhere, rendered 100 friendly ways. I looked up the reference. Old Earth pollinators, fragile, necessary. A symbol of systems that seem optional until they're gone and you count famine with your knuckles. They set assignments, not forced labor, work slots, jobs you could swap if you didn't like the first choice. They gave my gunnery officer a welder and a broken handrail to make right. They gave my signals chief a desk at the radio net. They gave me the ledger. It was a project the Holdfast ran like a ritual. Take one thing the Dominion had never written down because it would embarrass feathers. And expensive hats, and write it in public. Supply lines, pay rates, the rule by which admirals stole victory bonuses and called it tradition. A young human with ink on her fingers leant sat with me at a table and taught me to aim the math. Where it hurt, it's not treason if you fix a hole, she said. If your ship is family, don't you so? We don't talk about family at work, I said. Hearing my academy instructors in my voice and wanting to bite them, you might start, she said. Untroubled. Here, see these numbers? That's a bribe your captains call customary. Write it down. We'll mail it to the people who need it. We don't mail, I said. We threaten. Boring, Lynn said cheerfully. Write faster, in the Holdfast cafeterias. I met our ghosts. Names from the missing expeditions sat at tables with plates and bad jokes, and the easy posture of people who haven't been required to be decorative in a while. A pilot poured tea for a tug captain and called him Auntie. A Marine taught a child 3 different knots and stopped at 4, because 4 was the boastful one. They wore their old colors as scarves or belt ties, not flags. A group met every 3rd day to wrestle doctrine into something that didn't break. When you put your weight on it, they called themselves alumni and laughed at their own earnestness, traitors. My gunnery officer breathed. Graduates, said the Marine without heat. She tapped her badge. A bee smiled. I got tired of being a beautiful knife. Here I'm a tool. It matters what you build. Do they never leave? I asked. Some do, she said. We give them sandwiches and maps. She met my eye. The sandwiches are very good. The Admiralty told me to report and run. I wrote the report. I did not run. The first draft hit us in passive voice. The second excused us with weather. The third said the only true thing left in my mouth. We are not in danger here. We are in jeopardy there. I attached an appendix. Lynn helped me bleed pay rates, stolen shares, the customary gratuities that walked from the hands of border crews into officers' sugar bowls. Vren added a postscript. Tell my brother I'm sleeping. It helps. Rel signed with his whole name. I sent it on a public channel where children could fact-check it with sandwiches. The Admiralty did not answer. Border settlements did. We thought we were crazy. Thank you. A union hall posted our tables, circled with a B, and a joke about glue, on the Holdfast. Life continued as if our bravery were ordinary. Jack welded handrails until his bead was a signature. When he missed, an old woman with a B on her badge tapped his wrist and said, "Less wrist, more shoulder." He nodded, tried again, swore softly, and grinned when it held. Vren worked the radio net with a cup of coffee and a clock that didn't lie. Sometimes he stepped into the hall and shook, small quakes passing, then returned and said Mayday. Say again, like a man for whom asking twice was a sacrament. Rel taught a class called Shipboard Honesty that was mostly about how to say I was wrong and not die. I took a job I didn't know how to want, instructor honest ledgers. Lynn made me a syllabus with teeth. We stood in a room with too many chairs and poured arithmetic into wounds. If a doctrine rots your borders, she said, drawing a pie and then a smaller pie inside it. It is not doctrine. It is appetite. My hands trembled. I kept drawing. Students humans, Dominion deserters. A woman who'd never seen a ship and had the clear eyes of someone. Who can spot rot by smell argued with me until the numbers held still. We were busy the day the task force came to retrieve us. A carrier in parade paint, to cutters trying to look taller. The Admiral loved posture in a hat built by frightened hands. Channel 16 dinged, and the Port Authority controller answered without changing her T-hand. Inbound formation. You're entering a controlled volume. Reduced to approach speeds. Hot work permit required for hostilities. Be safe corridor is published. Questions? Imperial docket. The Admiral began. Fonts, the controller said sympathetically. Let's do this the easy way. They fired a warning shot anyway. Because doctrine is a habit. The shot died before it learned its name, caught in nets of legal knots and courteous drones. Spun gently toward a debris field labeled public art. The drones painted the bolt in cheerful chalk and added eyes. Children cheered. A camera saw the Admiral's jaw tighten. I wrote him a letter I didn't expect to deliver. Admiral, turn around. There are no prisoners here. There are people. If you come in peace, you'll get a sandwich and a tour. If you come to posture, we'll park you safely and ignore you until the feeling passes. If you shoot, we'll stop you with competence, which we have in dangerous quantities. P.S. I've attached the syllabus for introduction to honest ledgers. The lamp in row 3 flickers. If you're tall, would you change the bulb? Rel laughed when he read it. You can't send that. I already did, I said, and discovered that treason and relief share a taste. The task force held the outer lanes and postured for 11 hours. Then 12. Then just long enough for our kitchen to serve shift change stew. The Admiral requested a parley, which Port Authority scheduled for after lunch, before the clinic's quiet hour. He arrived in full paint, stepped into a room with tea rings on the table, and looked at the chairs the way a duchess looks at a bust. Lynn poured him a mug. Sugar. He beheld the bowl as if it were an ambush. No, good, she said. We're short. I watched him watching us, Vren adjusting a comm panel and humming a song that was not ours. Jack showing a child how to make a weld shine without using the word proud. Rel at the whiteboard drawing a bracket around the words power and care, and making them into the same sentence. I saw how we looked to him. Not conquered, not conquerors, busy. He stayed 7 days. We called it a courtesy hold. He called it an inspection. His gunnery officer took apart a locker door and fixed the hinge that had been haunting it since before I was born. The Admiral changed a bulb in the gym as a joke. Lynn made him do the other 4 to avoid uneven burn. He did and did not die. On day 8, the Admiral's hat sat on a peg with a hand-lettered tag, lost and found, return please. It never moved. Is this surrender? Jack asked me quietly. No, I said, wiping chalk from my fingers. It's onboarding. On the 10th day, I sent my final report, not to the Admiralty, to my mother, who birthed me into a navy and told me to make it better or burn it down trying. Mother, we found the hole. It is not a battle we lost. It is a door we never learned to open. No one returned after fighting humanity, not because they were all killed, because they were all invited. Ladders were set down. Ledgers were made honest. Rage was made expensive. Competence was made cheap. They turned war into administration and mercy into infrastructure. Come see. Bring your tools. Bring your shoes you don't mind standing in. Talani CCD the union halls and the border kitchens, because food and courage travel best together. Then the thing happened the Admiralty warned me about. I forgot the way home. Not from enchantment. From updates. They update everything here. The rule books, the menus, the maps, the words for what you are when you stop being a weapon and decide to be a tool. Every morning a new version of Try appears on a wall, annotated by a grandmother and a teenager. It is difficult to remember how to be a static person inside a dynamic place. I adjusted. We all did. Jek requested a transfer to the tool library and pretended he hadn't. Vren learned the names of every station on the emergency net and learned to say I hear you without lying. At night he slept. When he woke shaking, a person with a B badge held his hand and did not make it heroic. Rel proposed a charter addendum that passed by acclamation. Care is infrastructure funded, measured. Boring on purpose, I taught. The class grew. We hung the Admiral's hat on the wall between a Union picnic photo and a map to the best dumpling cart. Students touched the brim for luck before exams, the saying that terrible, triumphant rumor spread beyond the lanes, translated into languages that did not share an alphabet and still kept its teeth. No one returned after fighting humanity. It rolled back toward the Dominion like a tide. Ministers gave speeches with hostile fonts. Their children installed B-screens on their windows, built radios from junk, and asked their teachers for sandwiches with their civics. Months later, a message arrived from my mother, not through Admiralty channels, through a baker's guild I hadn't known knew her name. Saw your numbers. Our kitchens knew before our officers did. Bring recipes. I sent her Lynn. Lynn returned with 3 different ways to make stew, feed twice as many, and a curriculum for how to apologize without a parade. My mother sent back a photograph of a sign over a Union Hall door in our script. We build what we keep. Someone had drawn a cat in the margin. Once a week, after class, I walked to Dock 12 with a thermos and 2 cups and wait. Sometimes a ship arrives with posture painted on its hull and fear flinching under the paint. Sometimes nothing arrives and I stand anyway, because some kinds of competence are measured in presence. When a captain in a big hat steps off a gangway, I say, "Welcome." Allergies? If they bristle, I add, "We keep the good towels clean and the bad ones honest." If they relax, I hand them tea, then a form, name and intent, I say, and point to the box labeled "I don't know yet." It has a B next to it. A child drew it. When people ask me why no one returned, I tell them the secret we learned late and paid dearly to keep. Humanity's deadliest weapon was never a gun. It was a place to stand, a ledger that didn't lie, a policy that turned rage into paperwork and mercy into schedules, a sandwich handed without asking what flag you used to wear. The ledger back home still counts crates. Mine counts light bulbs changed, hours slept, repairs that didn't fail, apologies accepted, bees spared, boarders demoted to corridors. Ships that came to fight and stayed to file for a hot work permit because it was funnier that way. No one returned after fighting humanity. Some left, most stayed. I am one of them.